this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
This is Danielle Fishel.
Ryder Strong.
And Will Friedle from Pod Meets World.
Let's talk Chewy.
Yes. For starters, they've got over 100,000 products. Food, treats, toys, beds. And as a dog and a cat mom, I can go to Chewy for literally anything I need, and it ships fast.
And Chewy's customer service is unreal. Day or night, they're ready to help.
You know what else I love? They handle prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth, vet visits, and they're rolling out vet clinics across the country.
For life with pets, the answer is Chewy. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping at chewpanions.chewy.com/world.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration, support, and useful tools to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Listen to Joy 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey everybody, February 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 2023. We're going to be in Seattle, Portland, San Francisco. Again, 2023.
That's right. We can't wait to get back on stage. We've really missed doing live shows. Come on out and see us. Tickets are already on sale. And where can you get those?
At linktree/SYSK Live. That's linktr.ee/SYSK Live.
Can't wait to see everybody.
Welcome to Stuff You Should Know, a production of iHeartRadio.
Hey, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Josh Clark, and there's Charles W. Chuck Bright, and Jerry's here, of course, which makes this Stuff You Should Know. For real.
Can I lead off with a couple of just fun, quick shout-outs before we get to the not fun topic?
Yeah.
Going to Boston tomorrow to see Pavement.
Oh, that's what you're doing. Okay, great.
My old friend from high school, Robert Shahade of Tufts University fame.
Okay.
We were texting about Pavement, and he said, this is back when tickets went on sale. I'm going to both Atlanta shows, of course, and he said, you want to come up here? And I was like, heck yeah.
Nice.
So going to see the boys tomorrow, and also want to quickly shout out, I just got back recently from my 10th, 11th, and 12th Bonnie Prince Billy shows of the last couple of years.
Awesome.
And I just want to shout out the great people and towns of Santa Cruz, California, Paso Robles, California.
Sure.
And Big Sur.
Oh, yeah.
Just had a great time out there. It's my part of the country. Love Northern California. It's my vibe. Had great breakfast burritos, great food. And
great breakfast burrito.
They do them right, man. You can't get a real decent breakfast burrito in Atlanta, and I don't know why. That's going to be my retirement job.
Oh, that's great. I'll come patronize your breakfast burrito.
I don't know what is so hard about a California-style breakfast burrito, but Atlanta does not seem capable.
It's probably too healthy.
It's not healthy.
Okay. Well, then I don't know. I'm all out of ideas, Chuck.
It's so frustrating. Anyway, great towns, great shows. Another great run with the great Will Oldham. This time solo. First time I've ever seen him literally by himself. He has a variety of arrangements ranging from full band to a couple of people to 6 or 8, bluegrass style, and this was just him, which was a treat.
Unplugged for once.
Plugged but acoustic, yeah.
Okay. Did you? I was wondering if you'd gotten yourself a van to follow him around in yet.
No, I'm flying to these places.
Okay, that seems sensible.
And then I rent a car.
It'd be tough to get back in time to work, you know?
I wish you could fly in a place and rent a little hippie van to follow someone around for a few days.
That sounds like your retirement job.
Instead of some dumb mid-size SUV.
Yeah, you could be like, rent a VW wagon.
Yeah.
Get a free breakfast burrito.
There you go. That's it.
I might invest in that one.
All right, now let's talk about fundamentalism.
Yeah, let's talk about fundamentalism. This is one of those I guess episodes that ties into a bunch of other stuff, and it's the kind of thing that you don't really think about, and then when you do think about it, you wish you weren't thinking about, but it's kind of important, I think, for everybody to be aware of, because with fundamentalism, a lot of people, especially non-religious people, just presume that fundamentalism is a religious thing only.
Not necessarily.
And it definitely does affect religions most easily, as we'll see, but basically anything that people really hold dear can actually produce fundamentalism. And when you kind of strip it of its religious connotations, it becomes clear, like, oh yeah, there's a lot of fundamentalism going on around us, especially in 2022. And it has given me, just researching this, it's given me like a deeper impulse to be like, hold the center. Hold the center. We can make it through this. We just have to get to the other side and make sure that the center remains intact, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you put this together. You did a great job, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
On a tough topic. But I think the sociologist that you found that said this really had it is fundamentalism is an ideology rather than a theology. So it can be religious in nature, but it doesn't have to be. All that to say, sort of a long-winded COA, that this is not a hit piece on religion.
Oh, no.
At all. But it is, I think it is going to end up being a bit of a condemnation on fundamentalism, because it's not a great way to be, to say, hey, the way we think of things is the only right way. Everybody else is wrong, and I don't want anything to do with you.
Well, not only that, you need to change your viewpoints to follow mine, because mine's the only right way to think. That's a terrible way to be.
It's terrible.
And it truly, when you start to research fundamentalism, you do start to see it everywhere. Maybe not stuff that checks every single box, but when you understand the basics of it, it becomes clear we're surrounded by it right now. And that's actually kind of a new thing. One of the things about fundamentalism is when you kind of listen to what they're saying, they imagine that they're taking society back to this, golden age or golden era when things, were more sensible and more predictable and reliable, and things just made sense more. But fundamentalism is actually a pretty modern thing. It only arose starting in about 1870, and it was originally this kind of assault or response to progressivism in religion. Yeah,
that's a good way to say it. I think the first wave, you said, ran from about 1870 to 1929. I'm sorry, 1925. And we'll see in a minute here kind of how and why it ended the first run, at least, or at least brought it underground.
Yeah.
But it started, or it took its name at least, from a series of pamphlets called The Fundamentals, Testimony of the Truth. And that kind of says it all right there, like someone saying, this is the truth. This is not our opinion on maybe how things should be. This is the one way that things clearly should be, because it's the only way, because it's the one truth.
Yeah. And around that time, the late 19th century, religion in America was starting to become more progressive, because society was modernizing, and to kind of adapt and change and alter itself to this modernizing society. Just the understanding of what religion meant was under transition. And fundamentalists said, no. Religion is religion. It doesn't matter what society does. This is the truth. This is the way that it's supposed to be, and we need to stop progressing away from it and being accommodating to modern society. We need to make modern society go back to the old ways, the ways where we're in charge.
Yeah, and there was a big, sort of one of the first big face punches to fundamentalism came about in 1859. It kind of helped give rise to the original fundamentalism.
Right, yeah.
But the publication of On the Origin of the Species from Darwin, which basically, everyone knows what that did. That introduced evolution and natural selection and really undermined, sort of in writing for the first time, it challenged creationism as why we're here and how we got here.
Yeah.
And it sort of, as you'll see, that, at times when a fundamentalist might think, or a religion might think, that they're being threatened by new ideas, that's sort of when the lockdown goes on and they really sort of rise to the occasion, and that sort of helped birth the big first rise of fundamentalism.
Yeah, fundamentalism took its first swipe at modernity.
Yeah.
Sure. With the Scopes monkey trial in 1925. It was Tennessee versus Scopes, where Tennessee had charged a public school teacher, John Scopes, of teaching evolution in the classroom, which was against the law.
They charged the science teacher with teaching science.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And a very powerful and prestigious and smart attorney named Clarence Darrow came to the aid of John Scopes. And the Scopes monkey trial actually ended up putting not John Scopes on trial, but fundamentalism on trial. And Clarence Darrow was not a fan of fundamentalism, and he basically used this trial as an excuse to just show how ridiculous and backwards these fundamentalists' beliefs were.
That's right, and it worked. In a sense, he lost the trial, I believe, in that until 1967. That ban on teaching evolution remained in effect till 1967 from 1925. Yeah. But he lost the battle. He won the war. In that the coverage of the Scopes monkey trial really kind of blew the whole thing up and dealt a big blow to what fundamentalism was in the U.S. and how much sort of influence they might have moving forward. And kind of what it did post-Scopes was it kind of moved it back underground for several decades.
Yeah. I kind of think of the Scopes monkey trial and the result of it is like when Homer gets embarrassed on The Simpsons and the whole town just points and laughs at him. In that instance, Homer is fundamentalism in the 1920s in America, right? Like society did not think much of it afterward, which is surprising because it had been kind of a respected school of thought for a little while, and I guess it just went too far toward the mainstream. And as it went underground, it's not like it just went away. It actually built up a kind of like a shadow institution
a system
to rival the secular society, like schools, TV stations, colleges, seminaries, mission groups, and then also started to really kind of recruit new followers and members of these fundamentalist ideas through churches, through church outreach as well. And over the years, they just kind of built more and more strength and more and more strength. And in the late 70s was just like a tidal wave of fundamentalism swept across the world and really caught sociology off guard.
Yeah, and like you said, around the world, it wasn't just, we're not just saying like United States Christians did this. It popped up in some very surprising places sometimes. But again, it kind of all happened at once. But there was a big distinction here with the second wave in that the first wave was really to kind of strike back against progressive religious movement and to kind of keep religion as it was and not to modernize religion in any way. This go round, it said, society as a whole, I don't want anything to do with this modernization and this progressivism that's going on, and forget religion. Like, we want to get involved in government, and we're going to do it in a big way. And that's when the Christian Right was born, and groups like the Moral Majority and the Christian Coalition put big money into politics and helped us. It was sort of the beginning of getting politicians elected with a pretty severe religious bent.
Yeah, and in some cases, they were directly trying to elect fundamentalists, like Pat Robertson actually ran for president in 1988, ran a serious campaign, and did not win. But he is about as fundamentalist as you can get and see like on a mainstream television station with the 700 Club, but also like backing politicians with such gusto that the politicians they got elected basically owed them And in that way, fundamentalism like really kind of crept into American politics. And since that time, you start to see things like basically a challenge to the concept of something like a separation of church and state that is completely at odds with American Christian fundamentalism. And so there's been, as fundamentalism's gotten more and more into American politics, the line between church and state has been blurred more and more. And that's just one example of it.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it happened all around the world in the late 70s, in 1979 to be specific. Militant Shiites followed the Ayatollah Khomeini and took Iran away from the Shah and installed Khomeini as the leader. And, you know, I remember this when I was a kid. And I mentioned this on the show before, if you go back and just Google Iran pre-revolution, you will see a very swinging 60s and 70s groovy country that is not like the Iran we know today. And that was that was completely due to the Shiite uprising and revolution that happened because of religious fundamentalism in their case.
Yeah, it's exactly like if followers of Jerry Falwell created an armed insurgency and overthrew the American government and installed Jerry Falwell as the supreme leader of America. That's the exactly exact same thing. That's what happened in Iran. And it's really sad to see, but that's what happened. And it was part of this wave of fundamentalism. There was also Israel started to get more fundamentalist starting in 1974. There's still a lot of challenges by fundamentalism within Israeli politics today. India has a nationalist party, a Hindu nationalist party, I should say, the BJP. They're fundamentalists, Hindu fundamentalists. They've actually held power, like the presidency, multiple times since 1980. And then today, there's still waves of fundamentalism going on. And Africa has become a laboratory for Christian fundamentalists who basically travel to Africa as activists and get new laws, fundamentalist laws passed in countries like Uganda, where as of 2014, you can be sentenced to life in prison just for being gay. That is thanks to American fundamentalists who traveled to Uganda, got in with the government and changed laws like that, or got laws like that created or enforced.
Yeah, and it's crazy when you look at all this happening at once. Like you said, you know, it's 79 in Iran, 74 in Israel, the 1970s in the United States. It was just it's weird how things happen like that. I wonder if there's a podcast topic in there about like non-planned coalescence of, you know, anything.
Just zeitgeist coming
together. I guess
yeah.
That's sort of the word I'm looking for.
I wonder, too, because it's not like the Shiite militants in Iran were undergoing the same experience as the moral majority in the U.S., but the timing is insane. I mean, we're talking like within a year of each other. There's the Iranian Revolution, and the moral majority springs up and gets Ronald Reagan elected. Like that's and then in India in 1980, that the Hindu Nationalist Party gets founded. Like all of it happened at the same time, and it had to intertwine in some way. But I just don't see like Pat Robertson and the Khomeini like coordinating in any way, shape, or form. So how did it happen?
No,
it's a great question.
I don't know.
Chuck.
It's a pushback against something else that was happening, but I don't know. I find that stuff fascinating, how societies move as a whole. All right, how about a break?
Yes.
I think we're doing good so far.
Oh man, you jinxed us.
And we'll talk a little bit more about the F word right after this.
This is Danielle Fishel.
Ryder Strong.
And Will Friedle from Pod Meets World.
Let's talk Chewy.
Yes. For starters, they've got over 100,000 products. Food, treats, toys, beds. And as a dog and a cat mom, I can go to Chewy for literally anything I need, and it ships fast.
And Chewy's customer service is unreal. Day or night, they're ready to help.
You know what else I love? They handle prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're rolling out vet clinics across the country.
For life with pets, the answer is Chewy. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping at chewpanions.chewy.com/world.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. You can't order it, you can't borrow it, or simply hope it into life. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. Together, guys, we'll have meaningful conversations with the world's most fascinating people. Entertainment legends, sports icons, wellness experts, and everyday people will share how they find, allow, and experience joy. And I'll offer some of my own tips and takes on seeking a more balanced and harmonious life. If you're craving inspiration, support, and useful tools to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Joy after a breakup, joy as an empty nester, joy after a loss, joy as a caretaker. This new podcast will speak to you. Listen to Joy 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Your husband is not who you think he is. Your body is not what you thought it was. Your identity is formed by a secret history. I'm Danny Shapiro, and these are just a few of the stunning stories I'll be exploring on the 14th season of Family Secrets.
And just then, we felt the plane turn in the air. So much so that the bags that were under people's seats just kind of flew into the aisle.
Each week, we dive headfirst into the complex power of secrecy, how it shapes our identities and relationships, and how it ultimately can reveal to us our truest selves.
My daughter, she's pretending she doesn't know, but is trying to cook and feed me and keep me alive because I wasn't eating anything. And me pretending like everything was fine.
He kind of shoved me out of the way and said, move. And he went out the front door and he jumped in a car and drove off. And that was the last time I saw him.
Listen to season 14 of Family Secrets on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy Pride from the Outspoken Podcast Network. All month long and all year round, we're celebrating being loud, proud, and always original. It's me, Brandon Kyle Goodman, host of the podcast Tell Me Something Messy. Check out my show for unfiltered takes on dating, relationships, and adulting.
The more you get comfortable with someone, the more their real self comes out. They're going to be gross.
What's the grossest thing about a man?
Burping. Shut it down. Listen to High Key for the best pop culture takes, and there are no girls on the internet for all your tech news. For your favorite celebrity kikis, check out Outlaws with T.S. Madison.
Wait, so Luke was the son of Vader.
Yeah.
And Vader was turned by RuPaul?
Yeah, well, somebody turned him.
Okay.
Some old witch.
Learn to love yourself unapologetically with BFF, Black Fat Femme. And start your day with intention with Waking Up with Ryan coming in July. Celebrate Pride with the Outspoken Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Open your free iHeartRadio app, search Pride, and listen now.
Okay, so there's some things that people, some misconceptions. See, you jinxed us, Chuck. That people have about fundamentalism. See?
That's why I said the F word. I wasn't trying to be cheeky. I'm having a hard time saying the word.
So there's some misconceptions about fundamentalism that most people, especially secular people, have. And like we said at the outset, that a lot of people think it's an infection of religion and that it's a religion problem. And if you aren't a member of a church or a religious group, it's not your problem. And that's absolutely untrue. And that viewpoint of the whole thing is actually a big problem for society as a whole.
Yeah. And we mentioned earlier a little bit that like often you'll see fundamentalism creep up when they feel like something is being threatened that they hold dear.
Yeah.
And that's when they really lock down and get active. And you can look at things like, you know, people are fundamentalists about the Second Amendment. People are fundamentalists about the First Amendment. And it's usually more so at times where they feel like those amendments are threatened. During the Cold War, people were, the threat of communism really made a lot of people fundamentalist about the free market, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And what else? There's a lot of other great examples.
Ironically, people like Bill Maher and Richard Dawkins, who are basically militantly anti-religious, they are accused by some of being fundamentalist in their thinking, in part because they're intolerant, which, as we'll see, is a really important part. And that intolerance also gets liberal college campuses accused of becoming more and more fundamentalist in their thinking.
Right.
Where non-liberal professors can actually find their jobs in jeopardy and actually do get canned because of something they said that wasn't sufficiently liberal enough, right? So this is kind of what I was talking about earlier, where it's not like Bill Maher checks every single box of, fundamentalism, but if you understand fundamentalism, he actually there's enough boxes that it makes you question, okay, is this actually fundamentalist thinking? Same with constitutional originalists. Like, it does not have to be religion. And once you stop looking at fundamentalism as a strictly religious thing, it really does open one's eyes to just the world in general.
Yeah, I totally agree. You mentioned something really important a second ago in that, which was intolerance, which is a real hallmark of fundamentalism. And a really great example that you gave in your research here is the Amish. You can't get any more sort of tight-knit and strict religious than the Amish. But the Amish, who knows what they say about us? They may judge us, but what they don't do is leave their community and knock on our door and try and convert you to being Amish and say the Amish way of thinking is the only right way and everyone else should be like this.
Yeah, they're not running like Amish people in the local primaries to take over the school board because they want to impose Amish beliefs on the rest of the community.
No, they don't do that. They're not fundamentalists, and that's a really important distinction. And intolerance, it's basically there is no compromise. There is one true viewpoint that is correct. Mm-hmm. And anything that differs from that is the enemy of that.
Yeah, I mean, and intolerance is such an important part of fundamentalism that you can almost use it as a litmus test to say, okay, is this thinking fundamentalist or not? Because if there's no intolerance, you got the Amish, people who really, really believe in what they believe in, but they're not trying to impose their beliefs on anybody else, and they're fine with you believing whatever you believe. That's your problem. You're going to hell. Although I don't think the Amish hopefully think like that, but whatever. And that intolerance makes it incompatible with society.
Yeah.
Because in modern society, tolerance is extraordinarily important. And not only is it important, it's considered to be something that just kind of bubbles up to the top because it ends up holding society together. When you have so many different disparate people of different religions, of different creeds, of different nationalities, of different sexual orientation, of different genders, all living together in one country, and they can coexist peacefully, tolerance is just going to develop over time. And if you have intolerance, active intolerance, that's an infection on that society. And that's why fundamentalism is so dangerous to society.
So, yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And in a modern society, we've talked before about the marketplace of ideas, which is the idea that people just throw out a lot of different ideas, and the ones that work the best are the ones that are going to rise to the top, and those are probably going to be the ones that are the most widely accommodating to the most people. Mm-hmm. And if you are a fundamentalist, you're not a big fan of the marketplace of ideas. You're not a big fan of what's the most widely accommodating, because as society has progressed over the years, it has gotten more, progressive, and it's gotten more modern.
Right.
And things have moved forward, and fundamentalism is inherently kind of anti that in general. And they're like, that can spring up in the workplace. I don't want to have a cubicle next to this kind of person,
right?
Quote unquote. And it's not like I'll go quit my job. It's like, no, why don't they leave? Why don't you fire them?
Right, for being gay, because they're the ones that are the problem. I'm the one that subscribes to the truth. And it doesn't even matter if you're speaking out or not speaking out against fundamentalist beliefs. If you just subscribe to a different way of thinking, you're challenging the truth, and that cannot be tolerated. Opposing viewpoints cannot be tolerated by fundamentalism. They have to be stamped out. They have to be ostracized. They have to have violence against them in some cases. And so it would make more sense to that fundamentalist worker that their gay coworker should be fired, not them. And that's a huge contradiction to society, modern society in particular.
Yeah, and I mean, you made a really good point when you sort of talked about the hippie movement. Fundamentalism does challenge modernism, kind of full stop, for control of what's going on. And the hippies, they had a counterculture. They didn't like what was going on in modern society. They challenged it as well. But there was a big difference in that they rejected modern society and just sort of turned their backs on it and wanted to create a new way for themselves, like their own utopia, which obviously was never going to happen. God bless the hippies. But that's what they tried to do, at least. What they didn't do was try and say everybody should be hippies. We want to take control of the government and tell everyone that they should lead a hippie lifestyle.
Right. Through like laws and violence, right?
Right.
Yeah. So what's interesting, Chuck, is what the hippies were espousing as a counterculture was what fundamentalism was doing starting in 1925 to basically 1980 in the U.S. They, as a counterculture. They went off and established their own counterculture. They had, again, their own schools, their own media. It wasn't until they became politically active that they became that second wave where they actively were trying to take over the society in order to steer it away from modernity and toward Christianity. And again, they keep saying we want to steer it back into Christianity. That's something that's super up for debate as well, is just how Christian was America before. And are fundamentalists steering us backward, or is this a whole new modern direction that we've never been in before? And scholars say definitely the latter of those two.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But some of the traits of fundamentalist groups, and again, this can be any kind of fundamentalism all around the world. But one we've already kind of talked about is they're reactive to crises. And that's when, I sort of mentioned when they feel like they're being specifically threatened by maybe a law or anything really, or a movement or a group, another group. Then they try to sort of overcome that with power, and of course now with politics. McCarthyism is a really good example there. The Cold War created a lot of different kinds of fundamentalism. McCarthyism certainly was one of them.
Yeah, and so like a fundamentalist movement might rise on its own just in times of uncertainty, but when things are really uncertain for a lot more people, that's when they start to attract more and more followers.
Right.
There's also a big component of fundamentalism that is a reliance on simplistic solutions, right? So like, the world is huge and complex and scary, but all you have to do is listen to the literal word of God or follow the original wording of the Constitution, and all of your questions will be answered. You don't even have to think about anything. Just follow the word. And that's another hallmark of fundamentalism, is you are basically blind obedience to some leadership and or set of doctrines. And that's one of the reasons that it makes it so attractive. Like, you don't have to think about the world. You don't have to wonder about the world and why it's so scary and why it doesn't make sense. Things are the way they are because that's how they are. That's how they're supposed to be. Like, men are more important than women because God made us that way. Like, that level of thinking, and like, you just put a period on the end and you don't have to wonder any longer why a man is more important than a woman in America these days. That's just that. And that's a really big attraction of fundamentalism to people. It's like, remember King of the Hill?
Oh, yeah.
So Bill Dauterive, his buddy, I remember once he said he missed being in the army because they took the guesswork out of living. And like fundamentalism does that for its followers. Like, they tell them what the answers are, and you don't have to think about it yourself.
Yeah, that's good. I have a friend who I won't name, who his big gripe is when he talks to his, he's sort of the black sheep of his family, and that they don't align politically. But he says when he tries to challenge them with actual facts and things, he said they always say the same thing. They just sort of turn their head and go, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the perfect distillation of simplistic thinking is when met with literal facts and data, just, I don't know about that. Like, basically what they're saying is, I don't want to, that threatens me. I don't want to talk about that.
Right, and I'm not
is what they're
curious
saying.
about getting to the bottom of this. I'm not curious about your viewpoint. I'm not curious about my own viewpoint. I don't want it to be challenged. Let's stop talking.
Shut
what is
it
that?
down.
A thought terminating something? Somebody wrote in and told us once about.
Oh yeah, like a thought terminating statement or something.
Yeah, or like let's agree to disagree, which I still think is valid. But yeah, I get it.
I think maybe that's a last resort sort of thing, so you don't like start punching each other.
Exactly. It goes hand in hand with digging your fingertips into the arm of the chair.
Yeah, exactly. Does someone smell burning sawdust? Oh, Josh is just across the bar. Another sort of fundamentalist trait that can happen is, it's not always, but it's a lot of times is anti-science. But at the same time, and we've talked about this a little bit here and there, is it can go the other way. There are some people that are dogmatically fundamentalist believers in science to a degree that isn't maybe helpful.
Yeah, that basically it goes away from the concept of science, that science is constantly looking for new answers and everything.
Right.
And
that it's
a lot
settled.
of dogmatic science people are like, no, this is it, and let's stop thinking about it anymore. And if you challenge it, I'm not tolerant of that, and you're wrong. That is out there, but it's an aberration. I think for the most part, it is an anti-science kind of thing, because science is part of modernization of society, and so that makes it an enemy. It's an enemy, especially of Christianity or other religions, as far as fundamentalism goes.
Yeah, for sure. And then the last couple of things kind of go hand in hand. Is a lot of time fundamentalists can be conspiracy oriented. A lot of paranoia, sort of dwelling about it all stems from them feeling threatened about X, Y, or Z. And then they usually rally around some sort of charismatic leader, whatever the group is, whether it's the Khomeini, even though that didn't translate to America as being a charismatic leader. He certainly had his followers, but it's usually a man. They're usually authoritarians and charismatic. They usually are bullies in some way or the other. And a lot of times fundamentalists look at these people and admire them, like kind of wish they were like them. Like they're doing the things that we would do if we were in power.
Yeah, like I like a guy who can get up there and talk about beating up our critics, because I wish I could punch him in the face, and he's talking about it, and that makes me feel so good. Yeah, that kind of thing. And that conspiracy thing in particular, I was reading about that. There's a huge overlap that's developed between QAnon beliefs and evangelical Christianity. And they have a lot in common about like end times, apocalypticism. There's a lot of overlap. But one of the things that I think is starting to become apparent is that people of faith, especially fundamentalists, because they are maybe the most faithful of the faithful, are possibly more susceptible to conspiracy theories, because literalist religion, whereas like your religious text is infallible, there's no mistakes in it, it means everything literally, and where science or physics contradicts it, science and physics is wrong. That level of belief, and something like QAnon that's just that out there, require faith. And if you're already faithful to something like that, you apparently are more susceptible to things like conspiracy theories that require you to ignore facts and just take things on faith. And that has kind of infected evangelicalism. Something like, I think I saw on a 538 blog that like a quarter of evangelicals in America believe in QAnon too, which is that's a tremendous amount of people. I think a third of people in America are evangelicals. So a quarter of that third subscribe to QAnon beliefs.
Well, yeah, and here's something I don't think we maybe have hammered home enough, is that there is a large portion of American religious people who are not fundamentalists and who did, since the beginnings of modernization, try and roll with it and say, well, you know what? Maybe the Bible isn't to be taken so literally. Maybe these are allegories and metaphors. Maybe Noah didn't literally take two of every living thing. Maybe this Red Sea didn't literally part. Maybe these are all stories that we should draw inspiration or our way of looking at the world from, and believe in science, and they're compatible.
Right.
Not compatible, compatible.
Right.
That is a very huge part of religion. So we're not painting religion with this single brush here. We're just talking about one part of it.
Not at all. And some of the most vocal and outspoken opponents and scholars of fundamentalism are religious groups, because you've got progressives and moderates in any given religion, and they've got fundamentalists who are trying to take control of their religious group. And that's a problem for them. And it was evangelicals, moderate and liberal evangelicals, who started telling the rest of the world, like, hey, QAnon is making serious headways into our religious group, and it's a big problem, and we need to figure out what's going on here. They were the ones who told everybody else, basically.
Yeah, and those fundamentalists, the progressive non-literalists, are, in a way, their enemy as well.
Of the fundamentalists?
No, like within their own religion, the progressive non-literalists of, like, you know, the people say, like, well, maybe we should take the Bible as just metaphor.
Right.
They're enemies of the fundamentalists.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's where it started back in the 1870s to 1925.
That was the original split, right?
Yeah, exactly. It was a struggle within the Baptists and the Presbyterians for control over the Baptists and the Presbyterians. These fundamentalists came up and said, stop accommodating modern society. You're straying away from the word. And their beliefs just got harder and harder and harder and more and more literal. And they were a huge problem for the Baptists and the Presbyterians for a while.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's take our final break, and we'll talk about what history thinks about fundamentalism right after this.
This is Danielle Fishel,
Ryder Strong,
and Will Friedle from Pod Meets World.
Let's talk Chewy.
Yes. For starters, they've got over 100,000 products. Food, treats, toys, beds. And as a dog and a cat mom, I can go to Chewy for literally anything I need, and it ships fast.
And Chewy's customer service is unreal. Day or night, they're ready to help.
You know what else I love? They handle prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth, vet visits, and they're rolling out vet clinics across the country.
For life with pets, the answer is Chewy. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping at chewpanions.chewy.com/world.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. You can't order it, you can't borrow it, or simply hope it into life. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. Together, guys, we'll have meaningful conversations with the world's most fascinating people. Entertainment legends, sports icons, wellness experts, and everyday people will share how they find, allow, and experience joy. And I'll offer some of my own tips and takes on seeking a more balanced and harmonious life. If you're craving inspiration, support, and useful tools to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Joy after a breakup, joy as an empty nester, joy after a loss, joy as a caretaker. This new podcast will speak to you. Listen to Joy 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Your husband is not who you think he is. Your body is not what you thought it was. Your identity is formed by a secret history. I'm Dani Shapiro, and these are just a few of the stunning stories I'll be exploring on the 14th season of Family Secrets.
And just then, we felt the plane turn in the air. So much so that the bags that were under people's seats just kind of flew into the aisle.
Each week, we dive headfirst into the complex power of secrecy, how it shapes our identities and relationships, and how it ultimately can reveal to us our truest selves.
My daughter, she's pretending she doesn't know, but is trying to cook and feed me and keep me alive because I wasn't eating anything. And me pretending like everything was fine.
He kind of shoved me out of the way and said, move. And he went out the front door and he jumped in a car and drove off. And that was the last time I saw him.
Listen to season 14 of Family Secrets on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy Pride from the Outspoken Podcast Network. All month long and all year round, we're celebrating being loud, proud, and always original. It's me, Brandon Kyle Goodman, host of the podcast Tell Me Something Messy. Check out my show for unfiltered takes on dating, relationships, and adulting.
The more you get comfortable with someone, the more their real self comes out. They're going to be gross.
What's the grossest thing about a man?
Burping. Shut it down.
Listen to High Key for the best pop culture takes, and there are no girls on the internet for all your tech news. For your favorite celebrity kikis, check out Outlaws with T.S. Madison.
Wait, so Luke was the son of Vader.
Yeah.
And Vader was turned by RuPaul?
Yeah, well, somebody turned him.
Okay.
Some old witch.
Learn to love yourself unapologetically with BFF, Black Fat Femme, and start your day with intention with Waking Up with Ryan coming in July. Celebrate Pride with the Outspoken Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Open your free iHeartRadio app, search Pride, and listen now.
So, Chuck, we talked about how fundamentalist groups say they claim that they're taking society back to like this golden age, this era where things were the way that the fundamentalists wanted them before, right? And that doesn't seem to be true. But again, fundamentalists seem to be a modern phenomenon, taking us in directions that we've never been in before, where the fundamentalists are the ones in charge, right? And one of the ways that they do that is by selectively citing stuff in religious texts or in historical documents that support their ideas. And the Christian, American Christian fundamentalists love to do that with like historical documents from the founding of the United States, and even back when the United States was just some colonies, as British colonies.
Yeah, because a lot of those documents say the word God and mention God, whether it's the charter, the original charter for Virginia in the early 1600s, to George Washington saying that the drafting of the Constitution was an event that was in the hand of God. Fundamentalists say, hey, George Washington is George Washington. He also mentioned God, and he also says that you shouldn't compromise because the Constitution was written in the hand of God. And so that kind of ticks all the boxes as far as drawing a line in the sand.
Right.
But again, all this stuff is sort of out of context. And when you go back and you look at what the original Charter of Virginia meant and why it was written, or what George Washington meant and what ultimately made it into the Constitution, which was not the word God, you really got to look at that in context. Like, what was the deal with the Virginia Charter?
So the Virginia Charter said that one of the colonists' goals was to propagate the Christian religion to the indigenous people that they met there, although they didn't call them indigenous people. And if you look at the Virginia Charter from 1606, it was written by people who were British, who were corporate shareholders, who lived in London, who were ruled by the crown. And their aim was not to form a new nation and just Christianizing the indigenous people they met. There just added legitimacy to this commercial pursuit that they were undertaking. It's pretty flimsy as far as like a proof that America was founded as a Christian nation that fundamentalists need to take back.
Yeah, that's a good point. And like I said, the word God didn't make it into the Constitution. The word science did. In Section 8, Article 1, promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to their respective writings and discoveries. And, America may have been founded on Christian principles, but
this is important.
Very early on, I think, what was it, like 150 years after the Puritan colony of Plymouth was founded, the Christian experiment in government in America was over. And they said, no, we're going to found the federal government. And Thomas Jefferson said, we're going to separate church and state because we're going down a bad road.
Yeah, even if, George Washington meant what he said about being in the hand of God, and he was a Christian, and a lot of the other founding fathers were Christians, and they had Christian beliefs. But when it came time to found the United States of America, it's not like they hadn't considered, like they hadn't even crossed their mind to found a Christian nation. There had been Christian governments in North America already, and they said, no, we're going to abandon that and go a different direction. So literally America was purposefully not founded as a Christian nation. It could have been, had every opportunity to be, and it wasn't. And the point is, I mean, Chuck, we could make an entire spin-off podcast just going tit for tat on context and literalism with fundamentalism. But the point is, societies evolve. So it doesn't matter what was going on 400 years ago. Like, yes, they did a really good job writing the Constitution, founding some or creating some really great guiding documents, but society has evolved since then. It's become much more diverse, much more culturally rich, and we've just changed. Most people say for the better. And there's a lot wrong with it with modern society. There's a lot right, that if you had the choice, you would not want to go back to 1606 and live compared to today.
Yeah, and modernism is really basically what sociologists think is why fundamentalism still exists, is a response to modernization.
Right.
And, you know, modernization has its ups and its downs over the years. Hasn't been perfect. Pre-modernization, though, people were a lot more the same. We've talked about this before, pre-urban sort of factory work settings.
Mm-hmm.
People lived on farms. They lived on the land and worked the land, and they lived in the fields, and they were a lot more alike, and they were a lot more like sort of the same group of people. And industrialization came along, and it fragmented society, and entirely different people started to become people. Like, it changed the way people were. It didn't just change how they went to work and where they lived.
Mm-hmm.
All that inherently changed what people could be like. And social values changed, and that's a part of modernization. And, for better or for worse, it is fragmented us, and there's been a lot of negative aspects to it, but it's also come along with protection of civil rights and racial and gender equality, and the World Wide Web, which is, we can all agree is the best thing ever.
Right. It's flawless.
No downside.
But yeah, I mean, it would be ridiculous to say that modern society is just, perfect or even generally better in every single way. No, there's plenty of stuff that's wrong with it. Like the emphasis on industry and profits and can be really isolating and make people feel like they're just basically a cog in a machine. That's a big problem. But yes, there are plenty of solutions and plenty of things that have gotten better too. And one of the things about modern society is that we have brought more and more different people together who have more and more different ideas and experiences. And it's become clear that no one group is right or has all the answers or is the guardians of the truth. It's just been shown not to be correct. And these a pair of sociologists kind of put it, Michael O. Emerson and David Hartman. They said when you bring together people of differing views and values, what rise to the top as shared values are tolerance and acceptance, and that these become the core values of highly modernized societies. And that is great for most of us. But if you're a fundamentalist, that is the opposite of great. That is the opposite direction that you're supposed to be going, because not everybody's right. We're the only ones that are right. All of you are wrong, and you're wrong in a really terrible way that we have to change. So we have to take over society.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big threats to fundamentalists and why they've, I think, dug in more and more over the years is science is coming along to demystify a lot of the things since the dawn of time that were, tried to explain, the seasons and rain and thunder and death and, in various ways. And people since then have been trying to explain that stuff. Then science progresses and comes along and says, oh, wait a minute. We can explain natural selection now. We can explain gravity. We can explain electromagnetism. And, we know why the apple falls from the tree.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be some magical thing or some religious allegory. And so what that does is that pushes religion out a little bit, because fewer people needed it to explain things, which can be a big part of religion. And all of a sudden, religion wasn't like the overriding fabric of society, but it was just a part of society.
Right.
And that's a big threat to a fundamentalist.
Yeah, because a lot of people just say, oh, okay, well, science makes a lot of sense to me. I'm not going to abandon my religious beliefs. I still believe in God and Jesus or Muhammad or Buddha. I'm going, like you said earlier, I find those things compatible, not combatable.
Right.
But there's a group of people who are just find this unbearable. Modern society is just unbearable. It doesn't make sense. I don't know the people who live around me. I'm not valued like I used to be or like my great-great-grandfather was. My wife is working out of the house. What's up with that kind of thing? And rather than their beliefs loosening and progressing, they actually become more inflexible, more rigid. As society continues to progress and their beliefs are left behind because they feel left behind. So they actually come to rail against society, and that these are the people who become fundamentalists. So part of it is feeling left out, left behind, or opposed by society in general. That's part of it. But then also part of it is that attraction of somebody having all the answers in a really, frankly, confusing period of history, which is what we're in right now.
Yeah. And, when people get together and isolate themselves from others and say, we're the only ones that are right. And, hey, we need to get involved in politics and get a candidate that thinks like us out there. You kind of get where we are today, which is, like you said, it's a pretty, what's the word? Scary is too easy.
Snafu?
Uncertain.
Yeah, I mean, it is uncertain. Like, things are changing so fast right now. It's totally understandable why fundamentalist movements would be swelling. It's as scary as heck right now. I feel like the world is way more nuts than it was maybe 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. It seems like it to me, and I think it's because of this incredibly rapid social change. For me, society is generally going in the direction that I agree with. So I'm not threatened by it, even though I'm still just overwhelmed by how fast things are changing. And then also by how much tension there is from opposing sides to that change. It's a really unsettling and unsettled time, I think. So I can totally understand why fundamentalism would be so attractive to so many people right now. But again, one of the tenets of fundamentalism, Chuck, is if you can't take over the ship, sink it. That's basically second wave fundamentalism in a nutshell. So it can't be ignored. Society can't just ignore it. We have to figure out what to do about fundamentalist impulses. And there's some good ideas, some not good ideas, and some that may be worth trying and not worth trying. But we're still kind of in the very beginning stages of figuring out how to reconcile modernized society with fundamentalist impulses.
Got any ideas?
Well, I saw one pair of sociologists who wrote a book suggested that everybody should just read more fiction.
Okay.
I couldn't believe
that idea.
They meant that literally because they say that if you read more fiction, it can kind of transport you into other people's experiences and points of view and will foster tolerance, which again, intolerance is the hallmark of fundamentalism.
I'll throw one out there. I just thought of off the dome.
Okay.
Travel someplace that you may not ordinarily travel.
That's a big one.
Or travel someplace, period.
Yeah.
If you can. I know it's a financial burden for some, and not everyone can just jet off to Paris to see how the Parisians live.
No, but it turns out you are allowed to leave Ohio.
Oh, no.
I
Don't
can
pick
say
on
that.
Ohio.
I'm from Ohio.
That's true. Another thing that they say can help is to be more tolerant yourself and to be friendly and to approach a fundamentalist with friendship. Because one kind of criticism you'll hear from fundamentalists is sort of thrown it right back in the face of a non-fundamentalist and say, you're just as intolerant of my beliefs as I am of yours. Mm-hmm. I think the counter to that would be to say, well, no, what we're intolerant of is your extreme intolerance. Which is a big distinction.
Yeah, and this
it's
is
like you're intolerant of my racism. It's like that's not a great argument.
Yeah, but that's like one of those things that's like, okay, well, you can't just be tolerant of everything. Like there is a line, and racism is a really good example of that. It's a really great line that society shouldn't just be tolerant of that. But, how can you figure out how to apply tolerance to the people who feel that way? Like, can you be tolerant on an individual level as their neighbor or their coworker or the fellow grocery store shopper, to where you can display some form of tolerance with them without supporting or allowing their tolerance for their beliefs, of their racist beliefs, It's I think the reason why we are not a fundamentalist podcast, Chuck, is because we're not saying this is the answer. This is what you do. There aren't any answers right now, but there's a lot of different ideas floating around that could work or might not.
I think music can be a uniter. I think sports fandom can be a uniter.
Yeah.
You'll never see a more tolerant, harmonious place than like at a Falcons game in the South, in the deep South. Mm-hmm. Black and white people, like urban versus some of the most rural, rednecky type folks you could imagine.
Sure.
Like arm in arm for the same cause. And it's a dumb football game, but like there are small lessons to be found, I think, in those situations.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I remember reading a study years back that people who were super racist, who lived in towns where Hispanic, I can never remember, or Latinx people had come to live. There was like a large population of Latinx people, to where they lived among them, where they might still support like immigration policies, or anti-immigration policies, but they would be like, but not my town. Like they had developed tolerance without even realizing it, and their overall beliefs hadn't caught up yet. So maybe they were still voting one way, but as far as that person that they knew down the street, they were not about to let that person get deported. Not my town, kind of thing. And so I think whether it's a Falcons game or a musical rock concert, bringing people of disparate backgrounds together does foster tolerance, I think, too.
And it may not. I'm not saying that these people at the Falcons game walk out of there forging lifelong friendships, and they're like, you know what? Why don't we get together tomorrow for lunch? But there are small experiences that maybe can add up to something at some point,
right,
in life. I don't know. I'm like, I feel desperate for people to get along better.
Yeah, for sure. And there are people out there who are saying, like, what are you talking about? No, we should not even be, we should be isolating people with racist beliefs. No, it's not enough to just have somebody like have fun at a Falcons game. Like, we're way beyond that point. And I mean, I get that argument too. Like, I don't necessarily subscribe to it, but I can get how people are like, no, we're at like 5 alarm stage. We need to figure out huge radical responses to fundamentalism right now, because they're knocking at the door of the highest levels of government. And if they're an infection on society, we've got huge problems because they are growing and gaining strength. So I totally get both arguments, or both ways.
Yeah.
One other thing, Chuck, I think.
Something else?
Yeah, one more thing. So religion has a place in modernized society. It helps people from feeling totally crazy. If you need a sense of community, go join a religious group that's like a built-in, ready-made community for you who's going to accept you into it.
Absolutely.
Moderate and progressive, I should say, groups. But there's the religion doesn't have to be the only institution in society that addresses things like angst and unease and a need for reassurance. Like, what if society? What if science? What if culture in general just kind of undertook this project of finding meaning in this crazy modern world, and like helping reassure people? Like, that's what people join fundamentalist movements for, is reassurance. Ultimately, that is the basis of joining a fundamentalist movement. They want to feel reassured that everything's going to be okay. And if you can find equally reassuring alternatives to fundamentalism, I would guess that fundamentalism, I don't think it would ever fully go away. There's always going to be fundamentalists, but they would be so increasingly small and insular that you could conceivably just generally let them do their own thing and tolerate them.
Maybe so.
Okay, that's it.
He said with a resigned sigh.
Well, I'm just going to ask just to button it up. You got anything else?
I got nothing else.
I don't either, Chuck. If you want to know more about fundamentalism, start researching it. There's a lot out there that will probably open your eyes. And since I said open your eyes, it's time for listener mail.
This is about vasectomies.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, we heard from a few dudes that already have said, and this is day one of getting emails in real time, that, hey, vasectomies aren't quite as painless as y'all made it out to be, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it can vary, obviously, from person to person, but we've had quite a few guys that were like, it hurt bad for a couple of days, and I was very uncomfortable for a couple of weeks.
Poor guys.
So just wanted to say that. Hey, guys, listen to the vasectomy episode. I have to say you're doing a great service by disseminating this information. I'm a 26-year-old who's been with my wife for almost 9 years. We've talked... Oh, wow. Got married young. Good for you.
Yeah.
We've talked about not wanting children for years, but made the jump to getting a vasectomy in July. For me, it was relatively painless, but for the rest of that day, it did feel like someone had landed a low blow punch. The next day, I had a little pain with the use of ice packs. It was fine, and by day 3, I was back to exercising. After a couple of months, I feel psychologically and sexually liberated. Our friends stated their concerns on how we would move on if regret crept in. Since we made this decision about not wanting children, having biological children is not a concern. And if we ever regret it, because life is never definite, we can look at adopting.
Nice.
Highly
recommend. This guy's got
it.
all the answers. He should start a fundamentalist group.
Got all the answers. You guys mentioned that it should be called a vasotomy because there isn't anything removed. But with my procedure, and for others I've seen on YouTube, they remove about 1 centimeter of the vas completely and send it to tissue sampling. So technically, ectomy still works in this case.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for the years of knowledge and entertainment. You two put special comfort in the podcast realm. Wishing you unburdened ejaculations. That is from Ryan.
Very nice, Ryan. Thank you. And for everyone here in the United States, about 1 centimeter of vas deferens is 0.393700787 inches.
Well done.
If you want to be like Ryan and share your viewpoints and have us be like, wow, this guy really knows what he's talking about, you can send us an email too. And Guy, of course, is, as always, gender neutral because we're in a modern society and we love that fact. Anyway, you can send us that email to stuffpodcast@iheartradio.com.
Stuff You Should Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.
This is Danielle Fishel.
Ryder Strong.
And Will Friedle from Pod Meets World.
Let's talk Chewy.
Yes. For starters, they've got over 100,000 products. Food, treats, toys, beds. And as a dog and a cat mom, I can go to Chewy for literally anything I need, and it ships fast.
And Chewy's customer service is unreal. Day or night, they're ready to help.
You know what else I love? They handle prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're rolling out vet clinics across the country.
For life with pets, the answer is Chewy. Save $20 on your first order with free shipping at chewpanions.chewy.com/world.
Joy is essential, and it's also elusive. But now, there's a new and exciting way to start your journey toward a more joyful existence. Joy 101. It's a new podcast hosted by me, Hoda Kotb. If you're craving inspiration, support, and useful tools to maximize your joy, tune into these candid, uplifting, and moving on-air chats. Listen to Joy 101 on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.